the intro. But you also mentioned in the general introduction that everybody here is already trying to make the world a better place, so you probably don't really need a discussion about why do good, but I'm going to give you a little bit anyway, because otherwise there'll be a gap in the program for the next speaker. So there's different ways you could take that question, why do good? You could take it on the basis of, well, it's an ethical question that you're asking. In other words, okay, so if you're an ethical person, why should you be committed to doing good rather than doing something else, which I'll get into. Another question might be, I think the more difficult question in a way is, if you're not already committed to living ethically, but you're thinking, well, maybe there are things that you want to do that would be more in line with living ethically, why make that leap into living an ethical life in the first place? So, although I only have a few minutes, and you could spend a lecture course on those questions, I'll just try to say a little bit about each of them. So, in terms of why, if we are acting ethically, ought we to be thinking about doing good, and more specifically about doing the most good that we can, I think that question is one that people ask because they're thinking more against the background of a traditional morality which was concerned with a rather more limited set of rules that you had to abide by, and that did not involve trying to do the most good that you can. Traditional moralities related to what you want to be doing for a particular group, particular society that you're a member of, and mostly they were about how to get on with that particular society. So there was a range of things that you ought not to do. We're familiar with the kind of morality of the Ten Commandments, something that says, thou shalt not do this and this. And as long as we were living in small groups, that was probably really enough for us to get along okay. And that not only was a traditional morality that gets passed down culturally, but there's evidence that we've evolved instinctive or intuitive moral responses to things that happen in small groups, because that's the way that our ancestors lived for millennia, and essentially the responses that they evolved were those where they could survive and do well as individuals, and where the group could do okay too. But obviously now we're living in a very different world. We're living in a world in which there are a lot of distant strangers whom we never see, and we know that many of them are far worse off than we, assuming that I'm addressing people in Australia who are comfortably off. Basically, your basic needs are secured, and yet there are, well, I think the current latest figure, which fortunately is dropping, there are about 700 million people in extreme poverty by the World Bank's standards, which is living on roughly $2 per day or less. So the fact that we live in a world which has such sharp differences between those who are well off and those who are very poorly off means that we have the capacity to make a huge difference in their lives at a minimal cost, or even really at no cost when you take everything into account, to ourselves. And so we have these possibilities that simply didn't exist before of doing a large amount of good to people far away from us. And I think that if you do take an ethical perspective on life, then you can't ignore that. Because what underpins an ethical way of looking at the world is that the interests of all of those who you can affect are relevant to your ethical decisions. It's a matter of taking a larger perspective, looking at things from what I sometimes refer to as the point of view of the universe. Not that I'm suggesting the universe has a point of view, but rather that we can imagine taking that larger perspective. And if we do, then we can see that all of these other people have lives that could go well or badly, that roughly speaking, their needs are as important as ours. Their suffering is just as bad a thing as our suffering. Their joy and happiness is just as good a thing as our joy and happiness. And once we start to look at the world ethically, I don't think we can say, well, but it's my happiness, and that's therefore I'm justified in caring about that and not in caring about the happiness of others. Or it's the happiness of my family or my friends or my fellow Australians or whatever other group we might identify with. I think ethics tells us that we have to look beyond that. We have to take that larger picture. And when we do, then clearly if we can very easily make a big difference in someone else's life, then that's something that it would be wrong not to do. It would be just as wrong as breaking some of those rules or commandments, the thou shalt nots, which some breaches are very serious, some breaches obviously are much less serious. So I think we need to rethink traditional morality along the lines of the world that we live in, and that makes a significant difference to what the priorities ought to be when we live ethically. So, to say, if there are things we can easily do, last night I had asked Kirsten Armstrong from the Fred Hollows Foundation whether she thinks the figure of restoring someone's sight for $25 is a realistic one, and she answered that she thought yes it is. Well, in fact, even if she said no, I think the true figure is around $100, then $100 for restoring your sight, I mean, come on, the sorts of things that we would spend $100 on without very much thought are obviously going to be far, far less significant to us than getting your sight back is for someone who can't see. So, if you have that kind of discrepancy between the importance of what we might spend some money on and the difference it can make to someone else, then I think it becomes clear that this is really an ethical imperative to take this into account. So that's what I want to say about that first question. If you are thinking ethically, if you regard yourself as living an ethical life, then doing the most good ought to be an important part of that ethical life. But suppose somebody says, yes, but why should I care, right? I know there are these other people, but they're far away. Maybe I feel some regret that they're in extreme poverty, that they are blind because they can't afford a simple cataract removal, or that their children are dying from malaria. But really, I don't know them, they're strangers, I don't care about them. Unfortunately, you do encounter that attitude when just talking to people generally about these issues. And it's often really tough to know how you can respond, because generally speaking, what you have got are ethical arguments of the kind that I gave you a very quick snapshot of a moment ago. But some people are really outside that. They're saying, yeah, but I know that it's not a good thing, but I know it would be good if I help these people, but again, why should I care? I get that also when I talk about the ethics of what we eat. It was good to hear that the food is going to be vegan here. But people will often say, yeah, I know that factory farming is awful. I know that these pigs and chickens and cows and so on suffer in a whole lot of ways, but I just enjoy the taste of roast chicken or whatever it might be. So what can you say to people like that? I think in a way, you want to connect up with people's own interests then as well. I mean, there are other arguments, there are more complicated philosophical arguments that philosophers have tried to put forward about saying you're not really rational if you're not concerned about ethics, and I've tried some of those arguments myself. But I think as a short response, generally people are concerned about their own lives and how their own lives are going. They want their own lives to go well. And there is now, I believe, quite compelling body of evidence that your own life is likely to go better if you have concern for others. You might think this is paradoxical, since we're talking about effective altruism, and people think of altruism as self-sacrifice for the benefit of others. And what I'm saying is that I think the kind of things that we're talking about doing are not really a sacrifice in the all-encompassing sense of the term. So, of course, if you simply think of your self-interest in a material sense, if you think of it as, I want to have as much money as I can so that I can spend it on myself, buy lots of consumer goodies or go on expensive vacations, then clearly if you're going to start donating to effective charities, or if you're going to choose a career where you might earn less than you would have otherwise because you think it's going to do more good in the world, in that sense, you're making a sacrifice. But most people realise that that's too narrow a sense of self-interest, that really a self-interested life in the enlightened sense of self-interest is one in which you get satisfaction out of your life, you feel fulfilled, you're content with the way you're going, you have strong personal relationships based on mutual respect for each other. All of those things are, I think, essential parts of what it really is to follow your own interests, to live a good life. And along that kind of life, I think the research is clear that people who are generous, who think about others, have a life that they're happier with in terms of their answers to questions about how satisfied are you with your life. People who say yes to, have you donated to a charity in the last month or something like that, tend to have a higher satisfaction rating. Now I know that's correlation, not necessarily causation, but there is other research where the causation seems to be clear. For example, there's a study where people were called in to volunteer for an experiment, they were randomly divided into half. All of them were given a modest amount of money, I think something like $50. Half of them were told to spend this on something nice for yourself. Half of them were told to use this to help someone else or to do good for others. And then at the end of the day, they were asked to come back and they filled in a questionnaire, which included questions relating to their mood and to how they enjoyed the day. And those who'd been told to spend the money on helping others actually had a better day, reported that they had a better day than those who'd been told to spend it on themselves. There's also neuroscience evidence for this when people are having their brains scanned, fMRI images of their brains, and they're asked to make decisions about what to do with a sum of money where an option is to donate it to a charity rather than to spend it on yourself. You can actually see when those who decide to donate it to a charity that the parts of their brain that we sometimes call the pleasure centres, the parts of the brain that are active when you're enjoying good food or having great sex or other things that give you pleasure, light up also when you make decisions to donate to a charity. So I think that's just touching the tip of the iceberg of the research that has been done and is being done. But I think there's good evidence that if you want to have a more fulfilling life, that you will think about others. And I don't think it's an accident. I think it's related to what I was saying before. We are beings who can see the world from a broad point of view. We do know that there are other beings out there who we can help. And I think we can feel in some way that if we're not doing something like that, that there's something wrong. And I think it impinges on our self-esteem, on our sense of satisfaction, on our need to have a purpose in our life. And making the world a better place is one way to raise your self-esteem and to give yourself that sense of fulfillment and purpose. Okay, thanks very much.